This sound for Ajax and Advantage. This video is for integrating badges into your play using our dynamic HUD. There are a few fundamental differences with regards to badges for the dynamic and premium HUDs. I'll make a badge integration video for the premium HUD next. A lot of players have difficulty integrating badges into their play. It makes sense. It's a completely different approach to the game. Of the players I work with through my database analysis, backing, and coaching, only a small fraction of them really use the badges. For you, that means that there's a clear opportunity to outwork your opponents and gain an edge. So, what is the purpose of badges? First, badges are a much more efficient way to identify opponents' exploitable play. It saves you from having to go to the pop-ups, find positional stats, and/or have a huge on-table HUD that is difficult to efficiently read. Second, with our dynamic HUD, all the badges use multiple stats which would take significant time to manually find and evaluate, and very few players are effectively using multiple stats without our dynamic HUD. What I'm going to cover next is very important, and it's where I get a lot of questions from advanced users. The HUD you see here is a great example of the power of our badge system. Despite having incredibly low fold versus 3-bet, this player has every possible 3-bet badge, and 4 out of 6 are high exploit. That's the power of multiple stats. This player's exploitability is coming from his fold versus flop c-bets and turn c-bets. His exploitability is so high post-flop that 4 out of 6 badges are high exploit. Something that trips up a lot of clients is that we also use fold versus delayed c-bet as part of the calculation, and sometimes that spot alone will carry enough exploitability to activate a pre-flop badge. This player doesn't have a fold versus delayed c-bet and 3-bet pot badge, but it's important that you're aware of that possibility. A good general rule is that every badge includes all associated badges. My first example will be small blind versus a 3-bet. We use formulas inside the badge which adds up an opponent's exploitability. The list you see here applies to all versus 3-bet badges and versus steal badges. We mostly use positional stats, but we will switch to in-position, out-of-position stats in lower frequency spots like fold versus delayed c-bets. When a badge activates, that means there is an exploitability versus the initial move and/or in one of the associated badges. If the exploitability lies in an associated badge, that player's HUD will display that badge. In a minute, I'm going to show you how I use badges to quickly adjust my ranges in-game. But first, I need to briefly discuss my approach to the game, as I believe it's the approach that will get you the most out of our HUD, plus it's helpful to understand my approach to understand how I use badges. I play an exploitive style. I want my game to be balanced, but when an individual player is unbalanced, I'm going to shift my ranges in a way that takes advantage. The more extreme their imbalance, the more extreme my imbalance. You'd be right to be concerned that your opponent might pick up on this and play differently versus you. We've covered that possibility. Our HUD will quickly identify opponents who adjust. In our dynamic package, all badges use a versus hero check. Badges will disappear or appear once there is enough data that it is probable that your opponents are playing differently versus you compared to how they play versus other regs. Assuming you let badges drive your ranges like I do, you'll hopefully find yourself in this situation. You'll pound on a highly exploitable player. If they never adjust, then neither will you. If they decide they've had enough and change their game versus you, the badge will cancel out over a fairly small sample, and you'll switch to a no badge range, and now you have an opponent defending widely versus a value-heavy range. As a bonus, they're unlikely to play their light defense as well, as they aren't accustomed to that spot. If they switch back to their default game and start folding a lot more, the badge will reappear and you can go back to pounding them. To integrate badges into your game, you need to have a plan. I'm going to show you my general plan in 2 spots, and that will hopefully help you develop your game plan. What I'm going to describe can work as a general philosophy, but I think it's best to write out your plan for each badge, especially if you're struggling. My first example will be the small blind badge. No badge means that I either don't have a sample or their fold frequencies versus a big blind 3-bet or subsequent bet is low enough that they are non-exploitable. If no badge, then heavy and wide value ranges. On smaller sample sizes, I think it's fine to use high flop connectivity bluffing ranges. If level 1 badge, then stack off value and decent flop connectivity hands, typically hands that are borderline cold calls and just below borderline cold calls. I think it's preferable to 3-bet secondary value hands, hands just below your stack off range, especially if the exploitability lies in their post-flop play. If level 2 badge, which are badges with the white tops, then stack off value and lower flop connectivity bluffs, which are hands that fall below your cold call range. Call everything else that is playable so you can maximize the number of hands you play against these exploitable players. Big blind versus small blind, I would be very comfortable 3-bet bluffing King 2 suited, Queen 2 suited, Jack 2 suited type hands. Not to state the obvious, but you must take advantage of the connected post-flop badges. If you don't, you may be making negative EV 3-bet bluffs. There is a huge amount of value to be picked up from players who allow pots to bloat and then fold. Don't miss out on those players. Second example is check fold. This plan also applies to turn stab badges. For the sake of simplicity, I'm ignoring board texture considerations. Check fold badges are for out of position missed c-bets, and stab badges are for in position missed c-bets. The badge activates when they fold at an exploitable frequency after missing their c-bet. If no badge, then wide value and high equity bluffs like good backdoors. If a level 1 badge, then value ranges and bluffs with some equity such as gutters and overs. If a level 2 badge, then value and any 2 as much as you are comfortable. I will check more value hands as they are unlikely to get action due to their high folding frequency. You hopefully see the pattern here. No badge means heavy value concentration and only your very best bluff hands. Level 1 badge means value and equity bluffs, and a level 2 badge means high value and as many bluffs as you can comfortably make. This is a good general plan for all of our badges. This is Alan for Ajax and Advantage. I hope you guys got a lot out of this video, and if you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know. Good luck out there.